Hi guys, it's Jo here. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I'm having a few technical problems and I can't for some reason get it to go live on my computer. So here I am on my phone and I think that we can still go ahead with this. So if people can just give me a thumbs up or comment below and let me know that you can hear me and you can see me and that all is loud and clear, and we'll get into things. So Heather, hi, I can see you're there. You can hear me, I'm hoping. I am running a few minutes late today, but I'm here now and I want to welcome everyone to our Kfibre Facebook Live. Today we're talking about if the low FODMAP diet is right for you and how to work out if the low FODMAP diet is right for you. So this little... I'm feeling all discombobulated now because I've been so stressed about getting it to go live. So I'm sorry, guys. I will take a few deep breaths and reset myself. So today we're talking about if the low FODMAP diet is right for you, and this live is to celebrate the launch of the new Kfibre recipe book, which is this one right here. This recipe book this month is all low FODMAP, so all the recipes in it are low FODMAP by default. All recipes also have modifications at the bottom if you want to make them gluten-free or dairy-free as well. And at the end of this live, I'll be popping a link up in the comments so that you'll be able to download your free copy of this month's recipe book. So super excited about that. Just quickly before we jump into things, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joanna Baker. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian. I'm also a registered nurse. I've been working in healthcare for nearly 27 years now, so in a variety of areas, but the last sort of 10 years I've been focusing more on gut stuff, gastrointestinal things, working with people one-on-one to help them resolve digestive problems and make peace with food. I have a little business called Everyday Nutrition, and myself and I've got 3 other dietitians that I've handpicked, not just because of their expertise in gut health, but because of their bedside manner and the way they think and the way they approach things, I really resonate with. So I've kind of handpicked them and they all work with me and they all see people one-on-one as well. I want to thank Kfibre, of course, for sponsoring this. Kfibre are an amazing prebiotic, really beneficial for gut health, but also good for managing a lot of those gut symptoms as well. And of course, they are FODMAP certified. I know a lot of you guys already use Kfibre, so I'd love to hear some of your stories about how you're finding it, and share with everybody. So where are we? Kfibre, yes, just before, I'm going to jump in a second, and today we're going to be talking about if low FODMAP's right for you, but I do have a little sneak peek and some exciting news. It's that Kfibre does have a new look that's going to be coming soon. There are a couple of new products that have flavours in them, so watch this space because that'll all be coming soon as well. So I don't know about you guys, but I kind of feel like these days that every man and his dog has tried a low FODMAP diet. When I first started working in the area, it seemed to be the only dietitians have really heard of it, and we were the only ones that were really recommending it. And when we suggested it to people, there was this, we sort of got this blank stare back at us as to what the never heard of that. Fast forward 10 years and we're finding now that doctors have caught on. We're getting doctors are recommending the low FODMAP diet. I see PTs recommending it. I see it all over Google. I see everybody from your barista to your hairdresser getting on board and recommending it to people as well. And with really good reason, because the low FODMAP diet has shown to help anywhere from 50% to 80% of people who have got IBS type symptoms resolve those symptoms and feel better and get back to enjoying life. And if you're somebody who's got those IBS type symptoms, you know how debilitating that can be. So to get something that you can quite easily change in your life and have those symptoms resolve really adds a lot to quality of life. And we see a lot of people, it's life-changing for people. So today we're going to talk about, first of all, what are FODMAPs? We're going to talk about how and why they cause symptoms. We're going to talk about what symptoms are involved with FODMAP, so what sorts of things we expect to see, what we don't expect to see. We're going to talk about who a FODMAP diet is suitable for and who a low FODMAP diet is not suitable for. So right from the start, FODMAPs, these are types of short-chain carbohydrate molecules that are in a variety of different foods, and for one reason or another, they don't get digested properly, sometimes by all humans and sometimes just by certain humans. There are 4 types of FODMAPs. They are oligosaccharides, monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polyols, and we see these in a range of different foods. Now, if you eat foods that contain FODMAPs, they go in your mouth, they go down into your stomach. Your stomach is essentially like a giant blender. It mixes everything up into a smoothie type thing and releases that down into your small intestine. Once that smoothie mixture is in your small intestine, that's when all the enzymes and molecules start doing things, and your body starts extracting all the nutrition in that smoothie and absorbing it into your body so that it can use it for all those functions that it wants to perform every day, things like energy and vitamins and minerals and all that exciting stuff. Now, what does not get digested and does not get absorbed in that small intestine is always going to be the FODMAPs, and a few other things as well, but mostly the FODMAPs. So that means that those FODMAPs, they stay in the intestines, they move through the small intestine, they travel into the large intestine. And it's when those FODMAPs are in the large intestine that they actually do their thing. Now, the F in FODMAP stands for fermentable, and that's because these FODMAPs, they are fermented by the bacteria, the healthy bacteria that live in your large intestine. Now, this is actually, from a biological point of view, this is actually a good thing, because when those gut bacteria, that healthy gut bacteria is fermenting the FODMAPs, they're actually getting fed and they're getting nourished, and they're getting looked after. And that's what Kfibre does as well, is that it feeds and it nourishes those healthy bacteria. It's kind of like fertilizer for your microbiome in a way. So the thing is, though, when these bacteria get fed and they are fermenting things very quickly, that creates gas as a side effect. Now, in terms of FODMAPs, they are fermented very quickly and that gas is created very quickly. And if you're somebody who's got a sensitive gut, you are going to notice that gas production. It's going to stretch the walls of the intestines. It's going to push on those nerve endings that are around the intestines, and those nerve endings will start responding. Now, Kfibre is fermentable, so it does get fermented in the large intestine, but the difference is, the reason that Kfibre is low FODMAP and not a FODMAP, even though it gets fermented, is that Kfibre is fermented very slowly and uniformly along the entire length of the intestine, so we don't see that gas production, that sudden gas production. We get to nourish that microbiome without increasing bloating. So that's kind of where Kfibre fits, even though it is fermentable, and why FODMAPs cause gas but Kfibre doesn't. It's to do with how fast that fermentation happens. And with FODMAPs, it happens very quickly and very fast, and we see a large amount of gas produced very quickly. And that's one of the reasons that FODMAPs make people feel bloated, make people feel uncomfortable, that pushing on those nerve endings can alter and slow down how fast the intestines are moving. And if we slow down the intestines movement, we will see constipation as a side effect. The other thing that FODMAPs do in that large intestine is that they attract water. If we fill that large intestine with water, all that water has to go somewhere, and there is one exit from the large intestine, that's down the toilet, and we see those loose, watery bowel movements as a result. So what that means with FODMAPs is that the effect of FODMAPs is a very mechanical thing. FODMAPs do not get absorbed into the body. They do not really affect other body systems. They simply mechanically create gas in the large intestine, which causes bloating and constipation, and they attract water into the intestines, which can cause those loose and watery bowel movements. So those are symptoms that we tend to see that we call IBS type symptoms, things like gas, bloating, abdominal pain, loose watery bowel movements, constipation, or sort of alternating between the bowel movements. And those are kind of the classic symptoms that we see related to IBS, and those are the classic symptoms that the low FODMAP diet appears to help with. With a low FODMAP diet, we usually implement that elimination phase, which is the first phase where we remove or limit high FODMAP foods for a period of 2 to 6 weeks. What do we want to know from that is, does limiting those high FODMAPs, does that give you an improvement in those abdominal symptoms? And then we want to slowly reintroduce them one at a time to work out which FODMAPs are bothering you and which FODMAPs are not bothering you. From there, we can actually then modify your diet to give you that maximum food variety and those minimum symptoms and keep people comfortable and happy and getting on and enjoying some quality of life. When it comes to diet, the general consensus is that diet is a very safe and effective way of managing these things. And if we can manage these sorts of symptoms, or if we can manage almost anything without taking pills or supplements or medications for it, it's seen as a really safe alternative. And particularly also because we know that people who have got IBS type symptoms, about 90% of them do identify that food is involved in triggering those symptoms or involved in managing those symptoms as well. So it actually seems fairly logical that yes, you've got IBS, yes, you should go on a FODMAP diet and it's going to solve all your issues, which for some people it does, and for some people it is absolutely the right thing to do. But the thing is that limiting your diet, there are risks associated with that as well. And I always say, if you're going to be going into an intervention, yes, we want to talk about the pros because that's why you're actually doing it. But you need to make an informed decision, and you do need to think about the negative sides of things as well and weigh up both of those to decide if it is the right intervention for you. And this is where I come in and I say, look, food isn't just about nutrition, and it's not just about providing your body with good nutrition. You know, we eat for so many different reasons. We eat to provide our body with energy and to provide it with vitamins and minerals as well. But the thing about food and the thing about hunger is that our body is actually really cool and really good at looking after us, and eating food and getting nutrition is a basic human need, and that's something that our bodies actually need to stay alive and keep functioning. And to ensure that we continue to eat, eating is pleasurable and eating is enjoyable, and we get hungry. So that actually, those hunger signals are actually a good thing. That's showing that your body is doing its bit and doing its thing to keep you alive and stop you getting malnourished. Eating is pleasurable, and sometimes we eat a food purely for pleasure and enjoyment. And that's when that mental health side of things comes in. The other things that we do is that we eat when we come together with people. So it might be for a celebration, Christmas, weddings, birthday parties. There's always going to be food involved. It's a social event, and food brings people together. And as soon as you go on a restricted diet, that starts having other impacts on things like social events, on things like pleasurable food that you're enjoying. And it's kind of like, if I say to you, don't think about the pink elephant, all you can do is think what happens. And if I say to you, oh, you can't eat this and you can't eat that, and you're thinking about what you can't have, that actually starts taking a toll on mental health, and that starts having an impact because it starts being what you're thinking about a lot of the time, and you start feeling like you're missing out on those things. So yes, people have willpower. Willpower is still a limited resource, and I think that we need to be realistic going into this. If you're going to be on a restricted diet, there will be points in time that you are out with friends, or that you are thinking you'd like to eat something, that is going to be limited by the restricted diet that you're on. So we need to take that sort of thing into consideration as well. And particularly when we look at studies around things like disordered eating, is that it's very, very clear that people who have done elimination diets, or children that have done elimination diets, they have significantly higher rates in the future of things like food anxiety, food fear, some disordered eating behaviors, and even full-blown eating disorders. So we do know that restrictive diets can lead on to those things. I myself have IBS, and that fear of food and that fear and anxiety around eating something that's potentially going to trigger my IBS, I know that that is a real thing, and that is probably one of the biggest struggles that I fight with, is that mental health side of things of being on a restricted diet. And I don't want to say that that's a reason not to do it, but I do want to say, if you are going to do it, let's go in with our eyes open and let's have a think about that as well. So we've got our pros and cons of changing diet. Pros of diet change is that for most people, it's a safe and effective way of managing symptoms. Yes, it absolutely does reduce the need for medications. And I don't know about you, but the less pills I swallow, the better. So if I can reduce my need for medications, brilliant. It's also customizable, and it can be customized to your individual needs. So if you don't need to do a full-blown low FODMAP diet, you can modify that. That's different. If you were going to take a pill, you can't modify and customize that individual pill to meet your needs. But with diet, we can absolutely do that, which is a big pro. It helps you identify your triggers, and it is super empowering to be able to self-manage these things. So that is a really good thing as well. It actually, going through an elimination diet and doing those challenges, it actually teaches you a lot of self-management skills as well. And it also shows that these symptoms, IBS type symptoms, are not always just food related. We do see things like sleep having an impact, hydration having an impact, stress having an impact as well. And going through the process of doing an elimination diet, a lot of that stuff does come out of the woodwork, and we do start to see that sort of thing too. So you learn a lot about your body, and you learn a lot about the way your body responds to things by going through one of these elimination and reintroduction diets. It also reduces your, if you're managing yourself at home, it means you're spending less money on going to the doctor, because you don't need to go to the doctor so much, because you're able to manage those symptoms yourself. It also has socioeconomic benefits, because it means that you're not taking as many sick days from work. So that's good as well. It means that you are getting out and you are enjoying things and carrying on with life, which is brilliant. On the flip side, we have the cons of changing your diet. We know that with a major diet change in as little as 24 hours, we actually see a reflection that's showing changes in that gut microbiome as well. We know that a strict low FODMAP diet, within a few weeks, we do see reduced diversity and reduced abundance of gut bacteria. We don't know the long-term effects of this. This is an area that science is still learning a lot about, but we do know that an abundant and diverse microbiome is associated with better health outcomes, reduced needs, and reduced systemic inflammation, so reduced chronic diseases like things like diabetes and heart disease. So if you are the more diversity and the more plant foods you have in your diet, the more richness and diversity we see in that gut microbiome, which is a good thing. Restricting those plant foods, restricting those healthy foods, we see reduced abundance and reduced diversity. So we do see that potentially is not a good thing for that gut health and for that gut microbiome. This is somewhere that Kfibre does pick up a little bit of the slack, because Kfibre does nourish that microbiome. So if that's something that, if you are on a restricted diet for some medical need, then bringing in Kfibre is going to help look after your microbiome. But it's still not going to replace a healthy, balanced diet. You know, a healthy, balanced, varied diet is always going to be the best option. Like I said, we do see an increased risk of food anxiety, fear around food, and disordered eating behaviours related to being on a restricted diet, which makes look, to me, it makes total sense. I know what it's like to have those gut symptoms. I know what it's like, how crappy it makes you feel. And if I know that eating a food is going to make me feel like that, then absolutely I'm going to be fearful of eating that food. It's going to be something that I'm going to want to avoid. So that does have an impact on mental health. I'm not saying, look, we can see full-blown eating disorders. And often when people think about eating disorders, they think about things like controlling calories to manage body image and to manage weight. And that's what people think about. When I see disordered eating behaviors and fear around food related to IBS type symptoms, the actual behaviors are the same. It's the motivation behind the diets that is different. So if we've got somebody who's getting disordered behaviours because of IBS, the motivation is to control those symptoms. When we see it with things like anorexia, the motivation is to control weight and manage body image. It's a different motivation, but the actual behaviours are very similar. And the sorts of strategies that I as a dietitian bring in to help manage those things, they are very similar interventions as well. We see the thing about being on a restricted diet, we see social limitations, when you go out to dinner and everybody is ordering food and there's a whole lot of food down the middle of the table and everybody's sharing. If you're sitting down the end with your separate meal that's different from everybody else, that makes you feel like you're not really a part of that party. And that does have flow-on effects, that does have social implications. So, also, if you're going to a wedding or if you're going to someone's house and they're preparing food for you, there's always that thought and that fear around, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to tell this person what I can and can't eat? And that's a kind of being on a restricted diet. So we do need to, it's a reality, it's something that we need to take into account when we're deciding when and where a restricted diet is suitable or not suitable. And this is where I actually, just on a side note, a low FODMAP diet is not a game of perfect, and you do not have to follow it 150% of the time. So you can actually make different decisions on different days as to how much you want to follow that diet, how much you don't want to follow that diet. Social limitations, that does come into the decision of what you're doing on that day. Nutrient deficiencies are a factor. When you're limiting your diet, you are limiting your body's access to certain nutrients. We do see in research that people who are on a low FODMAP diet are less likely to meet calcium needs, they're less likely to meet fibre needs, they're less likely to meet needs for B vitamins. So that needs to take into consideration. And if you are doing it, those are things that you probably need to think about. What am I taking away from my diet and how am I replacing it? And is it a similar nutritional value that I am replacing it with? Misconceptions and negative perceptions. This is when you are ordering a meal and you ask for a modification and somebody rolls their eyes or somebody nudges someone down the table. That's always something that is the society that we live in. I don't make the rules. It happens, and that is something that if you're on a restricted diet, you probably want to think about, how am I going to be managing those situations? Am I going to ignore it? Am I going to address it? Those are things that we need to think about. Availability of specialty products and also the cost, so your access. So just because something is available doesn't mean that it's accessible. So access may be limited by price, access may be limited by location, access may be limited by what's on the shelves. And for everybody who's been living in this COVID world the past 2 years, we've seen empty shelves in the supermarket. So the access and availability to specialty products to meet your needs. So you want that pasta sauce that doesn't have onion or garlic. If it's not available, how are you going to manage that? Do you have a plan to how you're going to get around that, what you're going to do? Changing diet does require motivation. You are going to have to cook more of your meals from scratch. You are not going to, it's not going to be as easy as just following a general diet. So you do need to be motivated to change your diet and to manage that. Low FODMAP diets or restrictive diets are also not suitable in some situations. So I would absolutely never put a pregnant woman on a low FODMAP diet. She needs nutrition to nourish that baby. Somebody who's got particularly high calorie needs may not be suitable for a low FODMAP diet. People who are losing weight or struggling and with not enough intake, and we may see some malnutrition or undernourished people. It's not suitable for somebody who is undernourished to be on a restricted diet as well. The other one that is a big factor, and I know I harp on about this, but people who have got a history of having eating disorders in the past, if you have had an eating disorder in the past and you go on an elimination diet, you can be fully recovered, go on an elimination diet, and those thoughts and feelings can start coming back again. So history of eating disorder may be a reason for you to start looking at other things other than a low FODMAP diet to manage your symptoms. FODMAP diet is not the only way, diet change is not the only way to manage symptoms. So we absolutely have what we call empirical treatments. So that might be things that we say, okay, you've got this symptom, what can we do to directly address that symptom? For example, if you're bloated or if you're constipated, a Kfibre supplement may be all you need to address that bloating and address that constipation. And if we can fix those symptoms without changing your diet, even if we're not getting to the root cause of why you're experiencing those things, if we can treat those symptoms, we're improving your quality of life, and we're doing it without limiting your diet, and that is a good thing. We've also got things like gut-directed hypnotherapy that actually has some really good evidence behind it as well. Things like yoga a couple of times a week are shown to make a significant improvement in gut symptoms too. So FODMAP diet is not our only option. We do have other options if a FODMAP diet is not suitable for you. So I've been rabbiting on for half an hour. I hope I've given you something really useful. Just to finish up, what I've got is I have got a list of 7 questions that you ask yourself. This is kind of my checklist to say, is a low FODMAP diet suitable for you? So the first question is, do you suffer digestive symptoms like abdominal pain, bloating, gas, or altered bowel movements? That is the number one question, first of all, because that is what a low FODMAP diet helps with. Low FODMAP diets are not evidence for migraines. They are not evidence for eczema. They are not evidence for other things. They are evidence for gastrointestinal symptoms. So that is the first question. Do you have those symptoms that FODMAP is shown to help with? The second question, those symptoms can actually be identical to symptoms of celiac disease. They can be identical to symptoms of things like inflammatory bowel diseases and even bowel cancers. Before you assume it's IBS and before you assume you need a FODMAP diet, have you seen your doctor? Have you had celiac disease excluded? Have you had other things that can cause the same symptoms excluded? Because you don't want to run down that path of treating assumed IBS and 12 months down the path find out that it's actually not IBS as well, it's celiac disease, and you should have been doing something different the whole time. Do that right at the start. Have you seen your doctor and had those things excluded and had an IBS diagnosis confirmed? Third question, do you have celiac disease or do you have IBD that you know of and still have symptoms even though those conditions are well managed? So say yes, you do have celiac disease, you've known that for a long time, you're on a strict gluten-free diet, we can see from your blood tests that your celiac antibodies are within range of where they should be, but still have symptoms. That's when we might say, okay, yes, you have celiac disease, we know that, but it looks like you have IBS symptoms as well, so let's have a look at a low FODMAP diet. Have you addressed first-line treatment? So we have official medical guidelines, the NICE guidelines, which are the National Institute of Healthcare Excellence in the UK. They actually have guidelines that are intended for medical professionals to use when addressing medical conditions. And they have very clear guidelines for things like IBS. They do include a low FODMAP diet in their guidelines. But they have first-line treatments. So the very first things that we want to be doing if someone's got gut symptoms is think about, are you eating regular meals, meal sizes, meal patterns? Are you chewing your food well? Is your diet balanced? Are you getting enough fiber and fluid? Have you tried, if you're not getting enough fiber, have you tried adding in some Kfibre to see if that helps? Have you tried limiting alcohol, being careful with spicy foods? So things like gut irritants, like caffeine, spicy foods, alcohol, fizzy drinks, that sort of thing irritates the gut. So if you're drinking 2 litres of fizzy drink a day, have you tried reducing that fizzy drink to help manage those symptoms? Have you tried relaxation techniques? IBS symptoms, the gut-brain axis is a really big part of it because it's all about the sensitivity of the nerves in the gut. If you're someone who is really highly stressed, that doesn't, I'm not saying here that your IBS is all in your head, but absolutely your stress levels will have an impact. It's a two-way street. You've got gut symptoms, you get stressed, you get gut symptoms. So have you tried some management techniques to help with that? Things like meditation, reading, colouring, yoga, anything, walking, all of that, anything that you enjoy that helps you feel calm and relaxed. Have you tried that stuff? Are you getting enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? We absolutely have research showing that people with poor sleep are more likely to have IBS type symptoms. So think about your sleep hygiene, think about your sleep routines. Have you tried all that stuff first? Those are our first line interventions. If you've tried that stuff and it hasn't worked, our second line intervention is to say, okay, that hasn't worked. Now let's look at something like a low FODMAP diet. Don't forget about that first stuff, because if you're doing a FODMAP diet and forgetting about that first line stuff, you're not going to get great results. It's about having a toolbox of strategies that you use. Your first line interventions, your second line interventions, sometimes fiber supplements, other things. Have that toolbox. People who have a toolbox with multiple strategies in it, those are the ones that I see getting the best results in managing their IBS. Has your doctor or your dietitian recommended a low FODMAP diet? That's a really good one. And lastly, are you actually physically and mentally able to restrict your diet for a period of time without compromising your health? So if you've answered yes to a large portion of those questions, that's when it might be time to say, okay, a low FODMAP diet's right for me. That's when I would say to you, go and see a FODMAP trained dietitian. So Monash University run training courses for dietitians. You want to see a dietitian who has completed the FODMAP training, because he or she will know what they are doing, and talk to them about doing a low FODMAP diet, about how you do it, about the ins and outs and the practical day-to-day stuff of doing a FODMAP diet. If the last question you say that, okay, a FODMAP diet is not suitable for me, then still go and see your dietitian, because your dietitian will be able to say, okay, these are what our other options are. This one or this one might be suitable for you, and a dietitian will be able to guide you on that as well. So I want to finish up by saying a huge thank you to Kfibre for having me today. I'm going to run through all the comments below, and I'm just going to answer any questions after this. I'll sign off now and I'll run through and I'll type replies to all of those questions. I can see that there's been a lot of comments coming up, so that is really awesome. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at The Gut Health Dietitian. You can find me on Facebook with Everyday Nutrition as my Facebook business page. You can also find me through Kfibre as well. And a huge thank you to Kfibre for sponsoring this today. I'm going to pop the link to our latest low FODMAP cookbook in the comments below, so don't forget to jump on that and download your free copy of the cookbook. And don't forget to order your Kfibre. So you can jump online and order your Kfibre from kfibre.com and look after your gut, fertilize your gut in the same way as you would fertilize your beautiful, think of your gut like a garden. Your gut is your garden. We want to fertilize it. We want to keep it healthy and we want to keep it nourished. I will catch everybody later. Good to see you all. Bye.